If I never make it back home, yes, it was meant to be. I've been sent by the Lord with the destiny. I'm chasing demons out of this land under authority of God's right hand, and I've been down this road a time or two at least. And I'm not giving up for angel, man, nor beast, 'cause I'm a devil chasing son of a gun. Ain't giving up till the good Lord come back to get me, take me home. I'm part of God's army. Here we come.
Welcome to Tuesday night. Hey, is this still season 7? Last week of season 7. Her name is Vicky. My name is Tom. This is Through the Black. And Vic, how's it going out there? Are you going to make it?
Gosh, are you referring to the 20 times I yawned in the last 5 minutes? Yeah.
I didn't. Well, yeah, since you brought it up. Yeah.
I don't know what's come over me. I'm fine.
Okay.
Everything's cool.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Just want to make sure. So, yeah, we're going to get into it tonight. We got a very special kind of impromptu surprise guest tonight. So we're going to get into it. But first, we just want to let everybody know, throughtheblack.com. That's the website where you can go get all of our junk, our T-shirts, our books, our movies, all of that stuff. That's where you can find the archives for Through the Black, all the shows. You can find the Jared years. There you go. See that? And then right next to it is the Tom and Vicky archives. Okay, yeah. Here we go. This is on Odyssey, by the way. These are pretty much all of our shows that we've ever done. Hundreds, thousands of hours of shows that we've done over 5 years. Super cool that we were able to preserve them there. Mm-hmm. And that's then awesome. You can go check out the shows that Vicky and I have been doing for about a year and a half now. I don't know. I lost track, Vic.
Yeah, me too. Wow, look at that.
Yeah, so lots of stuff. And of course, that's on our there's stuff on the new Through the Black channel. There's links to the Rumble channel. All of that stuff is on there. And don't forget about the Go Therefore conference, which is coming up in July. And we've been talking about that just in case you're new here. You've been hiding under a rock. Conference coming up, Vic. It's going to be Mike Spalding, L.A. Marzulli, Derek and Sharon Gilbert, Dr. Michael Lake, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, David Heavener, and all of the Small Circle people. So, and that includes you and I.
That's right.
Greg Reed, Coach Dave, Pastor Casper, and so on and so forth. We're going to be there. It's going to be a great conference. This is going to be super sweet, man. Pastor Mike Spalding always does a great job. I was saying last night that I think this is the longest running conference where it's been done annually. Of course, even when we were shut down that 1 year, it was still a virtual conference. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so that's that. I just want to mention, yeah, Vic, we got a special guest tonight. Somebody that you and I know, pretty well. We both met, and and this is kind of important circumstances. There's a reason why we're having this guest on, is because they're getting ready to go on a mission trip, and we just want to kind of let the people know about this and give them a chance to support this person. So anyway, the person is my son, Gavin. You've heard me say his name many times, and I actually was able to pull some strings, get him into the studio, and he's going to be joining us tonight. And we're going to talk to him about his mission coming up and a lot of other things that we can ask him questions about. Not to mention, some of the crazy things that we'll be talking about tonight. So anyway, I'm just going to have him slide right in next to me here. Just slide your chair over there. So, and here we go. Can everybody see him? Hey, Gavin, how you doing?
Yeah.
Good. You first want to give a shout out to all your friends that are watching tonight. You did send everybody a text, right? And let them know. Okay. I'm going to take that as a no. None of his friends are going to be watching. So, but maybe he can make some new friends. Vic, you remember Gav?
I do. Unforgettable.
So, yeah. Well, he shot up a little bit, but this guy has, of course, maybe somebody has seen me out at some conferences, and Gavin's getting some love in the chat right now. So maybe you've seen him out at the conferences and places like that. He's been everywhere from Wisconsin to all over Ohio. Where else did we go, Gav? Lots of places. Iowa, yeah, we did go to Iowa.
Yep.
So now, Gav, we're going to talk about some stuff. You're getting ready to go on an adventure, really of a lifetime. You're going to go on the Created Equal internship here, in actually just a few days. You're leaving on Sunday, and then you're going to be gone for how long?
About 8 weeks. I think it's done on July 29th.
So about 2 months, he's going to be gone on an internship. So what does the internship, what all is involved in that? What are you going to be doing? Basically just partying for 2 months.
Yeah.
What like?
No, we'll do a bunch of pro-life apologetics training and a lot of outreach. It's pretty even, half and half, I think, from what I experienced last year when I wasn't old enough to actually do it, but I went down there a couple of times to hang out.
So speaking of last year, you really wanted to go on this last year, but you weren't old enough to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so finally, when the opportunity came up this year, you were like, okay, I'm going to go. Now, I know that you were torn a little bit just because of things happening in your life. You're trying to get your license. You haven't exactly, gotten that yet. You're working towards that. And you're like, if I go to the internship, it's going to kind of set me back. And you were kind of torn, but you made the decision to go. What kind of pushed you over the edge, so to speak, to definitely go? And if you want to lean up and get closer to,
this spring I went on the Justice Ride with them, which is like a week-long trip to Florida that I went on the previous year. And I definitely think if I didn't go on that, I wouldn't have been like as set on doing the internship, because they really do a good job of picking people out to go.
Recruiting you, right?
Yeah,
you were kind of recruited.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Vic, and you can jump in and ask him questions too, but obviously for anybody that watches this show, you guys know, my daughter, Gavin's sister, Evangeline, has been involved in Created Equal for a long time and done the pro-life work. So is it safe to say that you're, in some ways, you're kind of following in her footsteps? You've been influenced by her?
Yeah, definitely.
So you've been kind of doing this for a long time, and I've taken you out when you were, I don't know how old you were when the first time you went to abortion clinic. Do you know?
No,
Not sure.
no.
But do you remember some of those first times?
Yeah.
What are your like memories of going to an abortion clinic with us?
I don't know. I know a lot of times it was really hot and I didn't want to be there, but I knew that it was important in the back of my mind. So I tried not to complain too much, I think, but.
Right. Well, but you were, thank you for that. You were kind of, you didn't have a choice. I brought you along, and it was hot, and it was, sometimes early in the morning, we would get up and go down to the abortion clinic, and sometimes Evangeline would drag us along and say, okay, everybody's coming, right? And we would go down to Columbus, to try to stand in the gap. But that was sometimes that got kind of intense. Like, what did you think, like, about the environment? Did it kind of freak you out at all, or not much? Or
I mean, the Planned Parenthood kind of on a busy street, and a lot of people would honk and yell out the window and flip us off. But, if I was ever too upset about that. Just kind of realized that people are like that
Right.
pretty quick.
Right. So, Gav, when last year was your first year going on a justice ride, and that was kind of planned out for months. I was a little bit nervous for you. I'm like, I don't know if he's ready for this, because you are kind of a quiet guy. You know what I'm saying? And you're not one to go up and start conversations, or at least you haven't been. So I was like, man, this is going to be way out of his comfort zone. So what was that like? What is that like? What was it like? And what is it like, doing that kind of work? Because you're trying to change, you're trying to engage people that don't want to be bothered a lot of times.
Yeah. And I don't know, just like seeing my sister doing it kind of encouraged me. And I mean, like, the reason I went on the justice ride in the first place is because we went to visit her down in Columbus one time, and she asked me if I wanted to go, and I was like, yeah. I think I signed up later that week or month or something. But I don't know, it was definitely out of my comfort zone, but I just, after the first one, just kind of came easily to asking people.
Yeah, and I've got plenty of questions to keep it rolling, and we are going to talk about Doomsday, folks. But Vic, I want to throw it over to you for a question.
Yeah, well, I was actually kind of thinking along the same lines because, Gavin, you seem to be a man of few words and quiet and introspective. And I would think being on the streets with the woke crowd, knowing that this is such a volatile issue, could potentially be way out of your comfort zone. I don't think I probably would have had the guts to have done that at 16. I probably would have feared, absorbing all of that, as rejection, that kind of a thing. So I'm really impressed that you're doing it. I'm curious if you have any sort of measurable changes since you've started doing this, like by way of like personal growth. Have you noticed anything that you've tackled or changed in some way because this kind of gave you the guts to say, well, hey, if I can do this, I can do just about anything?
Yeah. I don't remember the timeline of it, but yeah, because I think COVID happened before the first Justice Ride, right?
It was somewhere around the same time. Yeah.
Well, because I went in 2022, so yeah, that was way before.
Oh.
But so I was gonna say the not wearing a mask in school, but I guess that was maybe the opposite effect, like that encouraged me to go on the Justice Ride, or I don't know, but
that's relevant because when all that came down, of course, school was shut down for a while, and they in order to go back, they were saying there were going to be mandates or whatever. And I had a talk with him, and he was like, yeah, I don't want to wear a mask, and we couldn't figure out what to do. So he just decided to go in, and not wear a mask. And if they're going to kick him out, they'd kick him out, but they didn't. So that was kind of weird, but that's very relevant, to what we're talking about now. So what was that like, being pretty much the only person? You were the only person in the whole school not wearing a mask.
Huh.
Like, that's got to be super weird, I would think. What was that like?
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of felt bad for a lot of the kids. Like, they didn't know that they didn't really have to do that, because everyone was just telling them that they did, and they believed it. And even the teachers, like, I don't think no teachers really got mad at me. Maybe they were, but they didn't say anything. And
Wow.
so.
Well, and so, I went up and I talked to the principal, and I said, hey, my son's coming here, but he's not wearing a mask. Is there going to be a problem? And he said, no, just send me an email. So I sent him an email, and that kind of took care of that. And what I thought was kind of weird is nobody really said anything to him. They just kind of did what they were told to do. That still just blows my mind, honestly. Because if I was wearing a mask, I would be mad at this kid, because he's allowed to breathe air and I'm not, and I would have been asking questions, but apparently nobody did really.
Yeah.
It blows my mind that more kids didn't follow suit. Like, hey, I can get away with this. I don't have to do this. So I'm shocked that they chose to conform, even when they realized that, the jail cell was unlocked in essence, right?
Well, and especially with, as rebellious as kids are, right?
Right.
I mean, they're doing all kinds of ridiculous things, like they're rebelling against actual science, right? When it comes to issues of gender, right? They're rejecting, physical evidence, but when there's an opportunity to breathe air, nope, I opt out of that. So
yeah. Well, I love the fact, Gavin, that you had the ability at your age to stand alone. I remember being a young kid, younger than you, and I remember my dad giving me and my brother this talk about standing alone. And he would use like principles from the Bible, and he would give examples of people who went against the grain, when everybody else was going in one direction, Joshua and Caleb or whoever. And, when my dad was telling me that stuff, it was like, yeah, this is great. But when you're actually in school with all your peers, and you're faced with those first opportunities where, okay, I'm going to be the only one in the class not doing this, it can be terrifying, and fear of man can take over. And I just think there is no limit to what God can do with the person who doesn't fear man. So I was just so happy when I found out you weren't wearing that mask. I think you were the only person I know of during that time that took a hard stand like that. And I just applaud you. That's character right there. That's going to show up, and that's going to continue to show up throughout your life. That wasn't just one opportunity for you to flex that muscle.
So many things we could talk about here. And I want to, before we go too much further, and we'll mention this again. So, Gav, you're going on an internship, of course. This is like a mission trip, okay? Now, I know because Evangeline did this a couple years ago, this is not easy. There is a lot of reading, essays you have to write, studying. It's going to be a challenge. Wow. And Vic, when he was talking about going, I'm just like, I'm warning him, months in advance. I'm like, okay, are you sure you want to do this? I mean, I support you in doing it, but I just want you to know how hard it's going to be. Well, it's going to be hard. It may not be as hard as this hour and a half that he's doing right here. If he can get past this,
probably not.
Yeah. Then maybe it'll all be downhill. But of course, it takes money. So if anybody wants to support Gavin, they can do that. And if anybody has $5, $10, $15, you can go to, there's a link in the show notes below, and you can shoot him $20. You can shoot him $50, $5, whatever. Every little bit helps. So here, let me say this, okay? And I have been a supporter of Created Equal Kids, not just my own, okay? I've supported several kids, and I get excited supporting these kids. And the reason I support them is because I saw what happened to my daughter, Evangeline. Okay. My daughter, she was like, she didn't know what she wanted to do. Okay. But when she went on her first justice ride, that was it. It clicked with her. Now she is a full-time missionary for Created Equal, and she lives by support. People support her. Okay. She's been doing it for close to 5 years now, I guess. Yeah, because she graduated 18, and it's 2023. She's 23 years old, so she's been doing this for 5 years, pretty much full time. I don't know what direction Gavin's going to go, but this is going to be foundational for wherever he goes from here. Okay, so when you go on a justice ride, when you go on one of these, internships, it is designed to train you, to change you, to motivate you, okay? And you're going to be doing it's going to be like in a class. This is going to be like college level training type stuff that you're going to be doing, because a lot of people do this after they graduate. That's when Evangeline did it, okay? So he's got 2 more years of school left, so he's getting in way early. But like I said, in order to do this, it takes support. So if anybody wants to support him, you can do that. The link is in the show notes below. So, Gavin, like I said, I took you out to abortion clinics a long time ago. And we went here in town. We went down to Columbus. We saw some really crazy things. But probably one of the most intense things is when we went to Columbus last year at this rally down at the Capitol.
Mhm.
And it was designed by Planned Parenthood. It was promoted by Planned Parenthood. And it was pretty much chaos there. So Created Equal showed up, and they had maybe less than 20 kids standing in a sea of angry pro-choicers holding up the victims of abortion. Okay. And it's kind of crazy, that they go in and do that. But they're like, their attitude about that is, if they're going to do this, the victims need to be represented. Okay. And even if they hate us, even if they just completely despise us and do whatever they do, the victims need to be shown. And it may not change one mind, but you know what? A lot of those people don't know the truth. Most of them don't know the truth. Okay. And they don't even know why they're doing that. So, Gav, what can you tell us about that day? That was a crazy day. You were there. People were screaming in your face. I was standing back, okay, watching, from, a few feet away. And I'm like, I have an instinct to protect my son, but I'm standing back. I'm making sure nobody's doing anything crazy. But I'm watching this and I'm thinking, this is actually something that's going to be good for you, right? What was happening that day when you went down to Columbus?
Yeah, so we met at the office, and then we all loaded up into the vans. And this was after my first Justice ride, so there are some people that I recognized, and I was glad to be going with them. And then I think we got dropped off before the rally had really formed. The Bands Off Our Body rally, it was called. And so we were kind of there before the whole crowd got there. But then, pretty quick, there was a lot of people there. And maybe there wasn't, but when you're standing in the middle of them, it looks like there is.
There was a lot.
Yeah.
There was a lot. More than I've ever seen.
Yeah.
At that state house. And I could not believe they came out to stand for the right to slaughter babies. So you had people covering your sign, screaming in your face the whole day. Now, you didn't know it was going to be like that when you left, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
not sure what I was.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know it was going to be like that. So what were some of the things that they were saying? I mean, obviously you can't repeat all of them, but what were they saying to you from what you could understand?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously all the standard pro-choice sayings that they're just kind of repeating mindlessly. And I remember this one, I think it was our friend Michelle, said, just talking about how nobody cares about what I think. And obviously I wasn't talking very much because I didn't really feel obligated to have discussions with these people as much as I did random people on college campuses. Just in the nature of the event, I was just there to hold up the signs and kind of be peaceful. Obviously I'm not getting mad at any of them. So that would look kind of bad for Created Equal.
So what did you think when it was over? I mean, I've never seen anything like that. But, I mean, was there anything that happened? Did it change you in any way?
Yeah, I mean, when there was still people there when we left, and obviously whenever we leave, people always get really excited because I think we're leaving for good or something, or that they scared us off, but we just had to go. And yeah, that was I don't know, it didn't make me like sad or anything, like however many people were like against me. It just kind of like made me want to do it more. Seeing like, I don't know how many people are like deceived and like so far into it that it's like it would seem crazy that they would change their mind. But who knows, maybe somebody there did, just based off the signs that we were holding up of the abortion victims.
Yeah. Vic?
Yeah. I think another kind of cool aspect about this, Gavin, is that there aren't too many 16-year-olds that would want to give up 2/3 of their summer vacation. You know, they want to sleep in, they want to play their video games and hang out. And so I just think that that's another thing I want to draw attention to is I can't really remember where I was when I was your age. I know I was a believer, but I think I was so wrapped up in my own stuff that I don't even know if I was in a position where I could have helped other people at that point, to tell you the truth. So I just think you've got such a great head start here, Gavin. And just the fact that you are willing to give up that much time of your summer vacation. I don't know. I think Tom's probably the one that's not going to fare well for 2 months, huh?
Well, we've already talked about that. I'm going to be a little bit lonely, but you know what? I've been psyching myself up for a while. I think I'm gonna make it through. So I've got
ice cream and soap operas.
Hey, I have a daughter that's still going to be here, and I will drive her crazy. Yeah. She's already said, and I don't know if she was joking with me or not, that we could spend time together, but we'll see about that.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, well, we got a lot of things that we can get into, and I want to. There's some other stuff that we're going to talk about. So hang in there with us, folks. But Gav, I want to. You have had some unique opportunities in your young life, okay? And there's a lot of people that listen to this show that are that were listeners of Russ Dizdar, and there's a lot of people that have come, that listen to Russ, even though he's gone now, and they never got to meet him. You actually got to meet him, spend time with him, and we talk about him. Everybody knows what he's like, when they hear him on the radio. But what can you just kind of share? What was Russ like in real life?
Yeah, I mean, I think the earliest or youngest, however you would say that, memory that I have of him is like, I don't know, we were all at his house for something, and we were like getting ready to leave, and he just like gave me like $50 for no reason. So that was pretty cool.
Wow.
I don't remember what I bought with it, probably some Legos, but
nice.
Well, he was very generous, right? And that's the way Russ was, especially with kids. Like, he would ask, he'd be like, hey, can I give them this money? He just wanted to give kids money, right? And he did that. So I don't know if we want to tell this story. I guess we will. But one time he got you, tell him, go ahead and tell him that story. So what did he get you?
Yeah, he got me a cool like drone thing that I could fly. Yeah, I think it was a pretty nice one too. Yeah, and then we were test driving it around the neighborhood, and I think I was doing all right test driving it, but then he wanted to take it for a spin and ran it into the neighbor's tree. So I don't think it worked very well.
No, yeah. I said, let me show you how to do it, and it was over. Yeah. So I broke the drone that Russ got him. So
oh man.
Yeah. True story. So we got to go out with Russ just a few months before he passed away, and we were on I brought you along. And I always check with Russ. I said, hey, is it okay? And I used to bring Evangeline along on stakeouts and stuff like that when we were doing investigations and just different things. and you came along with me one day, and it was pretty, intense stuff. I don't want to say where we were, but we can say some of the stuff that we were doing. It was, I don't know, I thought it was kind of cool, man. We actually got to work with, or we got to see work, cadaver dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we were driving around pretty much in the middle of nowhere, and then stopped off at this like gate thing, and then these people that somehow Russ got a hold of got these dogs out of the back of their car, and they went sniffing all over the place. So
that was kind of cool, right? Because that's the kind of thing that you see on TV.
Yeah.
And it was like a swampy area. We had a diver there, and yeah, it was pretty sweet. And it was, man, it was an all day and an all night event. And I wish we could share more about that. That's actually still an open case, but super cool. Gav got to ride along on that. So I guess I also want to ask you, Gavin, like, that was a couple years ago. What are your thoughts when you're seeing this? Because a lot of people may not know, like, one of your favorite shows growing up was Forensic Files. Okay. Even at a younger age, like even probably younger than 10, you and your sister loved that show. They used to have the episodes memorized, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, here we are. We're out doing, this occult crime investigation with Russ. So, I mean, what are your thoughts when some of that stuff is happening?
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, it was cool. Also kind of like scary that we're kind of like right in the middle of all that. So,
yeah,
like, who knows what you would find on that day.
Yeah, or what we would see, or
yeah.
Or, I mean, there was definite, potential danger involved. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so folks, yeah, the website is right underneath the picture right down there, or at the bottom of the screen. And you guys can support Gavin there. We'll mention it again here in a little bit, but I want to kind of shift gears for a minute. And Vic, if you have other questions or whatever, we can kind of turn it around. We're going to talk some more with Gavin. Gav, thanks you for coming over to the studio, by the way. Appreciate it. I know it was, it was hard to get you over here. So, but anyway, Vic, you and I were having a conversation yesterday just about conversations that we have and things that we notice and what we tend to gravitate towards. Mm-hmm. Okay. Which is all of this doomsday talk. And it's almost like we're not happy unless we're miserable, unless we're talking about something that's negative, that's dark in some way, that's going to be apocalyptic, end of the world type stuff. So I don't want to, I don't want to dwell on that all the time, but it seems like that we come back to that, and not only us, but many of our friends, right?
Yeah.
And friends from speakers at conferences, and our listeners, they can relate with what we're saying. And there's a reason for that, because once we've been red pilled, it's hard to go back to knowing what the truth is. We don't want to be put back into the matrix, right? So it's kind of difficult. And as we were talking yesterday, we were kind of voicing our the things that kind of, for lack of a better word, annoyed us, but those same things were actually beneficial, right?
Yeah.
So I'm speaking in generalities, but and Gavin's been around long enough to hear this and be involved in this, and also he's he keeps an eye on this stuff as well, from different perspectives and things like this. So anyway, I'm going to let you pick it up there.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, I was going to check this before the show tonight, and I didn't get down to where my books were. But interestingly, and this kind of plays into everything we've been talking about for the last few years and things that are planned as opposed to things that are happening organically. My dad and I recently went to somewhere here in Missouri, and we visited the Laura Ingalls Wilder farmhouse where she spent like the last 40 years of her life or whatever.
Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah. So it was her little farmhouse on their acreage and little museum and a little movie, and you could see the house and stuff. And it was pretty cool.
I didn't know that was a real thing. I thought it was just a TV show.
Yeah, no, she was a real woman, and she died in the 1950s. And so I bought a little book, which was actually a journal that was published posthumously after her death. And it was a 6-week journal of their 600 plus mile wagon train trip from De Smet, South Dakota down to Missouri. And it was super fascinating because this is early 1900s, and she's giving detail about all the wagon stops and the people that they're meeting and what the cities looked like and what they were eating along the way. And so it was very fascinating. But where I'm going with this is in the very beginning, she sets the scene that everybody's going south because there had been a drought. And the drought had killed all the farmland. And she called it the panic with a capital P, right? But then she said that her grandfather had told her stories and there had been a panic, and she listed like eight or nine different years where there had been panics. And she was almost alluding to the fact that these things were sort of by design. And so I counted between all of the years, and it followed a pattern of, don't quote me exactly, but it was like 23 years, 15 years, 23 years, 15 years, it was like clockwork. And it was fascinating to me. And I read it out loud to my dad because there's a lot of doomsday talk around my house. And I don't have my head in the sand. I understand what's going on around me. I'm interested. I love how Bible prophecy is unfolding in the news. I have an interest in that thing, that kind of stuff. I don't have an interest in dwelling on my pending death 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so sometimes it gets a little much. And so I read that to my dad, and I said, Dad, this is a woman who lived over 100 years ago. And she's in essence saying the same thing. Like they were always thinking it was going to be the end. And so I think that this is something that every generation does deal with. There's enough trouble and heartache and sorrow and plague and things going on in every generation for us to think like, surely it can't get worse than this. So where our conversation took a turn, and I thought it was interesting and it diverged a little bit from the norm, is how I've sort of learned to live with this constant doomsday talk isn't to constantly be suppressing the people who are talking about it or shutting them down or shaming them or changing the subject or whatever. Because every time in my flesh, I kind of start to open my mouth to rein my dad in a little bit, I very clearly hear the Holy Spirit saying, I've sent this man ahead of you to protect and provide for you. You're going to live through this garbage because he's thinking ahead. And he was designed by God to think this way. And I have really learned since living with my dad again to keep my mouth shut and keep my frustrations to myself, bring it to the Lord in prayer. And sometimes dad needs to be tempered, and I can do that. But I've really just learned that sometimes these people that seem to rain on the parade, so to speak, they really are the visionaries. They do have an understanding of what's going on. They're deep thinkers. They're walking with the Lord, and they're being given insight into how to preserve their family and protect them and to prepare and provide. A lot of P words there. I like alliteration. So anyway, it's this weird balancing act for me on a daily basis, Tom, of trying to deal with all of the bad news that's being fire hosed at me all day long, and learning how to take that to the Lord and not let that turn into anxiety or fear, but at the same time allowing my dad to operate in his God-given design as a protector and a provider, and to not try to squelch that. My dad doesn't need to think like a woman. It's not the way he was designed. It's not going to be of any benefit to him if I convince him to see the world through my eyes. And so I think that's kind of where there's some gray area. It's not either it's the end of the world or it isn't, or we're going to talk about this every day or we're never going to talk about it. There has to be this balance of facing the reality of the things that are falling apart in front of our face, and talking about it and having honest discussions about it without, letting it ruin our family life, but also learning as a female to let the men in my life who are trying to help me operate in their God-given design and not basically shoot myself in the foot. Because, when my dad's gone, what's going to be left is everything that he prepared and put into place before he left for me. So I'm not doing myself any favors if I tell him to quit, making the preparations that he's making.
Well, no, and I think that's good. I want to I like James's comment here, and I want to talk about this, Vic. So he says, I think Doomsday is a bit of a misnomer. The signs of the times point toward the return of Christ, which is a joy for the saints and only a doom for the lost. Now, okay, I want to talk about that for a minute, because we have been hearing this, okay, for decades, and I don't have a problem. I mean, we've been in the last days for 2,000 years, right?
Right.
So I don't have a problem with anybody saying that, the return of Christ, is near. I believe that even if it's 100 years, it'll be soon, right?
Right.
So, but there does seem to be a sort of a panic that maybe can do more damage than it does good in certain situations, right?
Yeah.
I used the example last year where, gas prices started going up, and everybody's like, okay, Jesus is coming back. The gas prices are going up, right?
You're right. Right.
Well, maybe not for that reason. Okay. So, a lot of our friends, they write books about this stuff. They're a lot smarter than me. I don't really want to, and for the record, none of them do either. Nobody's set it in a date here. Okay. But I'll give you an example. I remember when Russ started out doing conferences when I was around, he would ask people, okay, raise your hand if you think Christ is coming back in 10 years.
Right.
Okay. Raise your hand if you think it's 5 years. Okay. Hands went up all over the room. Everybody thought, that. So, if somebody asked me to raise my hand, and if I thought Jesus was coming back in 10 years, I can't say that I would. I don't know.
Right.
It could be 20 years. I think some things have got to play out. I could be off. If he comes back, I'm ready to go. Okay. But personally, I think it's going to be longer.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might freak out about that, but and I think we brought this up before, and I got a question I'm going to ask Gavin here in a minute, because I think back to the time when I was his age and I heard this stuff, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to hear this stuff, dude. I'm just starting my life. Things are getting rolling, But Vic, does that make sense what I'm saying? I mean, that's my personal belief. I'm allowed to have it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think another thing that I say to people all the time, and they do not like it, but just hear me out for a sec. We do have sort of this ethnocentric idea that America is the greatest country that ever was, and we're the apple of God's eye. And if it looks like the economy here is going to crash, or our freedom is going to crash, or we're going to turn into a third world country, that will bring Jesus back, because surely no American will ever have to break a nail or live in a trailer or whatever. And so the fact of the matter is, everything that we're seeing in our country right now might be the result of unrepented sin, and we might go down, and we might go down hard, and the world might go on without us, just like it went on without after the Roman Empire crashed, and after the Mongolian Empire crashed, and after the British Empire crashed. One could argue whether that's really happened, but anyway, we might be judged as a nation, and it might not be synonymous with Jesus coming back.
Well, yeah, that's very, very true. What happens to America, may not have any significance at all to what happens, as far as prophecy being fulfilled.
Right.
Okay. And the way that the way that we are always talking about it. Right.
Yep.
So, in the last 3 years, obviously, I think many of us consider this a climax in a way. Not saying it's the climax, right? But all the things have happened that we warned about. We warned specifically about these things, okay? And I can't say certain things. We say, instead of saying, the one word, we say medicine, forced medicine, okay? The mandates, all of those things. We warned that they would come after, us specifically, and one of the things I heard recently was that the electric bills were going to double in the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if it's happening anywhere else. And when I heard that, I had this reaction. I was like, man, I'm not surprised. I told people this 10 years ago. That's why I looked into solar over 10 years ago. And people thought I was crazy for doing it, but I knew that the price of electricity was going to go up. And it's not only about the price, but it's about not having it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They could shut the grid off. So I get worked up when I think about these things. And the thing is, we can prepare as much as we want. And I don't think there's anything wrong with preparing, but ultimately we're going to have to trust God. So I want to kind of, I'll give you a chance to comment here in a minute, but I want to ask Gavin this. Okay, Gavin, 16 years old, your whole life is ahead of you. You're just getting started. Okay, you're getting ready to break out of the gates here in a couple years when you turn 18 and graduate, right? So you've kind of grown up, obviously, with me, hanging out with people like Russ, and you met all of our, I was going to say crazy friends, but awesome friends, from L.A. Marzulli to, all of these guys, right? And that's a term of endearment. What are your thoughts? And I've never asked him this before about this kind of talk, or what is it like to grow up in an environment with your dad talking about this stuff? And you can answer honestly.
I don't know. I don't think about it that much, but it's obvious. I guess I think about it more than most kids my age, probably, just because it comes up pretty often.
Well, yeah, I get a little excited about it. Okay. And I'm always looking for, teaching moments. Yeah. Remember Tommy Boy and Chris Farley?
That's what I was just doing.
Yeah.
That's what I was just doing.
And he would just kill the sale, right? So anyway, and this started way back, with my oldest is 29, right? And I was like, okay, what are they teaching in school? 9/11. Okay, here's the lowdown. Here's the truth. Okay. And we, for years we've had like a 9/11 meeting, right? Where I'll pull you guys around and be like, okay, guys, here we go again. Here's the truth about 9/11, right? That's what happens at the Dunn household or around the dinner table. We have these meetings, and I know that, the world is working hard to teach them the lies and make them believe lies are the truth. So I don't just take it for granted, even though, they've grown up in this household, that they're going to know what the truth is. Now, here's the thing. And let me throw this in there too. I feel like I try to be pretty open-minded, and I tell my kids I could be wrong about this stuff. Do you think that's fair to say or no? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I can't think of like a recent example. I don't know. But yeah, I mean,
So
yeah.
well, and you and I have disagreed on things, and it turned out that I've been wrong, and then it turned out that I've been right, and vice versa. So anyway, I remember being your age and reading the book of Revelation, and you've asked me, you in the past few months, you've asked me questions about what these things mean and stuff, and I'll be like, well, that's what I think it means, but I don't know for sure because all my friends disagree on what it means, right? So I'm not ready to to plant my flag on any of these hills. But I would be not real happy with the idea of the world ending when you're just getting ready to start your life. I mean, can you comment on that at all?
Yeah, that would suck. Obviously, I kind of missed like a good chunk of school and my growing up because of COVID. So I did like online for a year and kind of completely forgot that I even did that at all. Like looking back on it, just seems like nothing happened.
So, Gav, let me ask you this. And a lot of this you may not remember, but of course, behind the scenes, we're having these talks. Probably other families are not having the talks that we're having, right? And evidence of that was Gavin was the one kid that showed up, and he's like, "I'm not wearing a mask." Okay. So anyway, so we've had these talks, and for years I've been saying specific things. You may not remember any of this stuff, but what is it like? Because I've had to apologize to you before, even though it's not my fault. I've said, "Hey, son, sorry that the world is like this. When I was a kid, this didn't happen to us. We didn't have a worldwide pandemic." And I'm just like thinking, man, what would we have done? What would it have been like to go to school back, in the late 80s, early 90s, the time when I graduated? That's just crazy because we had no conflict. We were the post-Vietnam, generation where we had nothing happening for a long time. We had a little skirmish over in Iraq, but we didn't even lose a man during that, So I don't know where I'm going with this, but you see these things happening in real time when the lockdowns were happening and all the crazy stuff. I mean, what was that like? Just exciting, like, okay, cool, I'm getting out of school? Or was it like, man, this is kind of crazy?
Yeah, at first it was pretty exciting. Got out of school. But yeah, it is kind of crazy, especially now when you see people that like are still wearing masks and still like going along with all this crap that we
going along with all this crap. I couldn't have said it better myself. And it's sad because these people they bought the lie, and the media did a great job. They get an A+ for lying. So Vic.
Yeah. Oh man, Gavin, I remember when I was younger than you. I was probably more like 12, and I remember being at a family get together, some function, some dinner, whatever, and nobody else was talking about eschatology back then. But my dad has been on this trip since the 60s. So anyway, he was going on and on and on. His little ray of sunshine and talking about the end of the world, and no one at the table was buying into it. No, we're nowhere near it. No, we're nowhere near it. And he's, sounding his little bell. And I like dismissed myself from the table, and I went down into the basement of my aunt's house, and I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed because, I was like taking in everything my dad was saying. And it had nothing to do with like being afraid to die or being hauled into FEMA camps or whatever. It had to do with like, I'm 12 years old. Like, I want to grow up. Like, I want to know what it's like to be an adult. I want to buy high heel shoes and drive a car, and, just the experiences of life. And so I remember that being difficult for me, having to hear that all the time growing up. And for me, rather than traumatizing me, it caused me at a really young age to determine that I was going to pursue joy every day, regardless of what was going on around me or what happened. But one thing that I've observed now that 40 years have gone by, everyone who was around that table naysaying my dad and saying he's crazy that Jesus could come back in our lifetime, they now all believe it. And what I think is really interesting, and I think this is where Christians need to be really, really, really honest, is sometimes I think this idea of a rapture can be sort of the Christian version of escapism. You know, the world is going to pot, everything's going crazy. America's not the country it was when I was a boy, you know, and now all these people, they've grown up, their children have grown up, their grandkids are growing up, they've had all of their life experiences. So now it's like, I don't want to die. I don't want to just get sick and go into a nursing home. Jesus has got to come back, you know? And again, I think sometimes all of this fervor from the older generation of it's the end of the world, it's the end of the world. What's backing that? Are you just, you cannot wait to see the face of Christ? You cannot wait to be with him? Or you've lived a full life and you've experienced all that the world has to offer, and there's nothing left now but getting sick, your friends dying, going in a nursing home. So now you want to be rescued from that. I don't think there's a lot of eschatological honesty going on necessarily with a lot of this. It's the end of the world talk.
Yeah. I like this here. It says, living life does not end when Jesus reigns. It gets more lively. I believe that's true. So, you know, Vic, yesterday we were talking about just some of the things, you know, the conversations that we have, and you know, I used the example a few minutes ago. Everybody's like raising their hand, like Jesus is coming back any moment. So, and it's more what James said is, I believe he could come back in the next 2 minutes or the next 200 years or whatever. Yeah, that's true. But this was more of a people were saying definitively, you know, that's the way that I took it, and that's the way that it seemed. Okay. And I don't know, for me personally, I'm more of a pre-wrath guy, but that doesn't matter. I'm totally open to being wrong. We have an amazing friend, Chris Taylor, who is he is a pre-trib warrior. Okay. He's a pre-trib soldier. And I wouldn't even think about bringing this up around him. So I would love to hear his take about it. I want to learn from everybody, you know. I don't know how it's going to go down. The reason I say that I'm pre-wrath is because over 10 years ago, I was listening to a lot of people that were pre-wrath, and it kind of shifted my view a little bit. So, but I could be wrong, and I could change it again in 5 years. But where the heck was I going with this? So some of the talks that we're having about, you know, all the warnings and things like this, I am so thankful that I studied this over 10 years ago and knew about this stuff so we could be prepared for what happened in the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that we did not take that medicine. Okay. And I'm so glad, because I don't want to say what's happened to some of the people that have taken it. I can't on here, but you guys get the picture, and you know what I'm talking about. So, you know, something else that was really relevant in Ohio in the last few months was when there was a train derailment in East Palestine, and all this toxic chemical spilled into the ground, and then it just spread, and who knows how far it went. So I'm thinking for months and months, I need to get a water filter. I don't do it. And then that happens. And then, okay, I'm like, okay, excuse me, we can't wait any longer. We've got to get this water filter. And fortunately, because I'd already done the research, I was right on top of it. And we were able to do it. But things like this, there's nothing wrong with doing it. You know, I have a responsibility to protect my family as much as I can. I can't do everything, but I do believe in the Second Amendment. I do believe in, you know, arming ourselves. And if somebody comes to attack us, you know, we will take it out. Yeah. Hey, I agree with that. Did somebody a pan? Where's it at? I'm a pan tribulationalist. God knows how it will all pan out. Just along for the ride. Yeah. Amen. Amen.
I love that. I love that.
Vic.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, obviously, I've been so oversaturated with the whole eschatological thing my entire life, just because it was just always talked about. So this is the way I look at it. I don't care when he comes back. I just want him to come back. And if he rescues me from all trial and I don't even stub my toe, that's awesome. But if he doesn't, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. I've got the whole Psalm 27, though an army camp around against me, I will not fear. Even then will I be confident, I think is what it says. So I think the preparation for me anyway isn't about timing. It's about fear of man. And so what I work on consciously throughout my life is I'm consciously doing things every day, like what Gavin's been doing. I'm not going to wear the mask. I'm not going to do this at school, even though everyone else is doing it. I'm going to take my stand here. Like every time I have an opportunity to practice courage, I'm going to practice it, because that's what saved Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were willing to be dragged off to the furnace because I'm not bowing down to this statue. And I think every day that we practice not bowing down to all of these statues, and there's hundreds of these statues now with all of these agendas, that for me is the preparation. So no matter when Jesus decides to come back, no matter when or how he decides to suck me up into a cloud or not, whether I'm in a FEMA camp, whether I suffer for 10 days or I suffer for 0 days, I am going to practice not making decisions based upon fear of man. And that's what that's what the preparation is the character where we're not only willing to die for Christ, but we are not afraid of it. And I don't have to order my theology around what my fears are.
Vicky James says, I'm pre-trib and I have no worries for any of you. I'll explain it all on the way up. So,
Yeah.
So yes. Anyway, the idea behind this show tonight is to start a conversation, okay, and to talk about these things. Vic, I thought we were just kind of ranting yesterday, okay, as we're trying to think of something to talk about, and sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's more difficult. And then we just kind of got bummed out about all the dark stuff. We're always talking about dark stuff, right? Or end of the world stuff. And it's like, dude, I don't want to read another book about demons or ritual abuse or, Nephilim or, just it gets to you after a while. And we want to, we want to, how do I say this? Take some time and smell the flowers. Is that a way that we can put it? Yeah. Obviously, as Christians, we are overflowing with hope, with joy. Okay. We also, as human beings, we have depression, we have struggles, these things. So anyway, Vic.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I think is kind of interesting by way of strategy of the enemy is it says in Matthew that when this gospel is preached to every ethne, then the end will come. So in other words, when we do our job successfully of the Great Commission and every tongue and tribe has heard the gospel and had their opportunity, then Jesus will come. It's as many years as it takes us to accomplish that commission is as many years as this will be prolonged. Now, granted, God could send 10 million people from every culture could have a dream on the same night and be saved overnight. Like, obviously, I'm not discounting that. But if Satan can get us to drag our feet on the Great Commission, because we know that the fulfillment of that is his coming, and we're terrified of his coming because it might mean FEMA camps or getting our fingers chopped off, or it might mean getting our heads cut off. If we are terrified of his coming, and we know that the fulfillment of the Great Commission is what brings that on, we're going to drag our feet on that Great Commission. And what a strategy of the enemy, because that gives him more time. As long as Christians are dreading the day of the Lord and they're dragging their feet on the Great Commission, he gets more and more and more time. He's buying time. And that's why I think that the modern church reading the book of Revelation and walking away from it terrified, if we were reading that book correctly, we would be so excited that his coming could be this close. We could see him again. All of this could be eradicated. We could see all of our lost ones again. And I just think this Christians being terrified of the rapture or the end times is just an amazingly intelligent strategy of the enemy to buy more time for himself.
Yeah. I guess I think of in 2 Thessalonians where it talks about there's a restrainer there holding everything that's coming at us back. And once that restrainer is loosed, then it's going to get crazy. And I think, Lord, give us more time. I want to reach more people, And I never thought about what you just said because that's scriptural, and Russ used to teach that. Okay. I heard him talk about it many times. So I never thought about that as an opportunity for the enemy as well. So, it's interesting. I tell you what, folks, I am not ashamed. I stand on God's word, and I believe it 100%. I don't understand it 100%. Okay. But I believe it. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. God's word's not wrong.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'm trying to think of the verse where it says where Christians are mocked because they'll say, where is the promise of his coming? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know where that's at, Vic?
Not offhand, no, but I can look it up here for you if Katie doesn't beat me to it.
Yeah, it's a race. So, anyway, folks, we want to start this conversation. We want to, just encourage you guys to, if it's a struggle, and somebody said 2 Peter.
Yep.
2 Peter 3:3. Should have known James would have it.
Yep.
So I have a Bible right here. I can look it up if nobody else gets to it. So
I got you. They will say, where is the promise of his coming? For ever since the fathers fell asleep, all things are continuing as they were from the beginning of creation.
Yeah. Can you back it up and say, what's the verse before that?
Verse 3 is, knowing this, first of all, that scoffers will come in the last days with scoffing, following their own sinful desires.
Then they will say, where is the promise of his coming? For ever since the fathers fell asleep, all things are continuing as they were from the beginning of creation. So God's in complete control. He's not taken by surprise. Okay. He knows exactly what's going on. So anyway, folks, what say you? We want to know. Do you feel like you focus too much, on the doom scrolling? Some days, and I'll be honest, I'm not happy unless I'm miserable. I'm not happy unless I find bad news. Okay. And Vic, I try to analyze this. I'm like, okay, is it because I don't want anybody sneaking up on me? And I know they're up to something because they're always up to something. I feel like that's it. And I'm like, I want justice. I want to see justice. Okay. And we have to remember we may not see it in this lifetime, but nobody's going to get away from the justice of God. Okay. Yeah. So we've seen justice and we've seen injustice. Okay. But the justice of man's courts should not necessarily satisfy us in the way that, the day of the Lord will, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a pastor once that used to say, you got to fight for delight. And I always like it when it rhymes because then I can remember it. But I think that we were wired by God to be joyful people. And the fall, then it's like an uphill crime. Like who is it? Sisyphus? Who's the guy who had to roll the ball up the hill every single day and then start over?
I
And
forget what his name is.
I thought it was a myth of Sisyphus or something like that. But anyway, he would roll this ball up. And I think that every day, the achieving of joy in the Lord is like rolling that boulder up the hill. It can be done and you can get it up there, but it takes all day and it takes a lot of effort. But I think that we were wired in the way that we were created. We were wired for joy. And so I think that this constant barrage of negativity in our mind, whether it's self-doubt or self-loathing or other people that we're living with or regrets or whatever it is, our mind is actually in rebellion against our design. We were wired for delight. We were wired for joy. And I think it's just part of the corrupted flesh that now part of our curse, so to speak, is that we have to just expend so much energy fighting to take every thought captive and harness that joy.
Well, that verse is appropriate for so many other things than the normal things that we think about. Okay,
Yeah.
taking every thought captive, making it obedient to Christ. Right.
Yeah.
I'm finding so many new ways to use that verse. So, again, folks, we're just trying to start the conversation, and hopefully this kind of continues on. Now, that being said, we're going to continue to cover the real dark news. Okay, we're going to continue to expose. We're going to continue to preach the gospel. Okay, I feel like we do it pretty good sometimes. You know, I don't know where the balance is. Sometimes we do more one thing than the other, but you gotta watch the whole body of work to know what we do. You can't just watch one show and then make a judgment, right?
Yeah.
So, especially when Kenny C's on. So
that's right. Gotta watch that guy. And he's the carrot top of Striper merch. Do you ever notice that? He just keeps pulling more Striper stuff out of
I
that.
never thought about that. Yeah. So speaking of Kenny C, yeah, we have another show coming up on Thursday. Bad Moon Rising by Creedence Clearwater Revival. We talk about that song, and I talk about why I picked that song because it reminds me of The Black Awakening, the book by Russ Dizdar. So, but Vic, I want to talk to Gavin some more just about his mission trip and what inspired him. But before we do that, I want to kind of segue into just kind of some interesting things that happen around here, around the house. So you say, is your phone's right over there? So could you grab it? Because I want to show them the picture that you showed us, if it'll show up here on video. Yeah. So here, you know, a normal like family dinner here. Gavin's appearing and disappearing. Yeah, bring up that picture and I'll see if it shows up here. I'll hold it up to the camera here. His sister and him went on a nature walk, and they saw an interesting sight. So
okay.
I don't know if you'll be able to make this out because it's kind of camouflaged here. Okay, so let me see if anybody can see this.
Oh, yeah.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, that's a raccoon that got stuck in a tree, and I guess he died there. So,
Yeah.
I think he sent it to his aunt. She was not thrilled to get that picture.
Yeah, like the whole tree was dead and like hollow in the middle. So I think he must have like climbed up and then went through the top and then couldn't get out the bottom.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, well, what that made me think of is the time that Winnie the Pooh got stuck in Rabbit's cave. Do you remember that, Vic?
No.
No, you never watched Winnie the Pooh?
Not. Maybe it would have been a long time ago. I don't think so.
Oh my goodness! Well, this
his
bit's gonna go way over
voice,
your head. Then
his voice creeped me out, man. He was like this little bear, or I think he was. I didn't even know what he was. And yeah, this like old man voice, like the voice, like creeped me out, man.
Okay, well, so anyway, I got somewhere I'm going here, and I thought it was interesting. Okay, So I think I started talking to the kids about Winnie the Pooh and asked them, if they had ever seen that. And Gavin brought up this theory that all of the characters on Winnie the Pooh are based on some kind of a mental disorder. So you have all of these characters, from an owl to Piglet to Tigger to Eeyore, even Winnie the Pooh, Christopher Robin. So this is not familiar to you, Vicky, but I don't know. You know how fan theories go, and I don't know if this is a fan theory, but so for example, Eeyore. Do you know who Eeyore was?
Yeah, he is the depressed one. Yeah,
he's the depressed. Okay, so you get it.
I do know that.
Yeah. What about Tigger?
Hyperactivity or ADHD?
ADHD. See, she's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what about Piglet? Do you know who Piglet is?
I know what he looks like, but I don't know his personality, so I'm not sure.
I think that was anxiety.
Anxiety. He was always worrying about everything.
Oh, wow, yeah. So what about Pooh?
Pooh.
It was like ADD.
ADD.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
also like binge eating.
He was also a binge eater.
A binge eater, totally.
That's it.
Interestingly, Ashdod Forest in England is where, is it A.A. Milne who wrote that stuff?
Yeah.
Milne modeled Pooh's forest, which I can't remember the name of offhand. He modeled it after Ashdod Forest. And if you do your conspiracy research, Ashdod Forest is the Bohemian Grove of the UK.
Interesting. Okay. And another one was the owl. Whose name was Owl, and I guess he was like a narcissist.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
And by the way, speaking of narcissism, we're overdue for doing a show about that. So maybe when we come back in a few weeks, we'll throw that in there.
Nice.
So I also have another couple other ideas of stuff we're going to do here in a couple weeks. So I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting, like one of these analysis of movies, but it fits. I was like, man, I never thought about that before.
Totally.
So
I think since the DSM is such a joke, instead of now diagnosing people as narcissistic or ADHD, they should just be diagnosed like Piglet.
Yeah.
Eeyore. Pooh.
We'll just call them, after a character of Winnie the Pooh. So
I think that popped up when I looked it up.
What's that?
Like it had like a mental disorder chart with all the characters on it.
Oh, okay.
Let me go through my history.
So apparently there's a chart that, who knows, maybe it's used in some places. So okay. What do they say about Rue here? Oh, this is a New York Post article. It said Rue has autism. Rabbit is OCD, by the way.
Oh.
Christopher Robin, they're saying, because he speaks. Yeah, here you go. He speaks to animals. He's
delusional.
Schizophrenic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a similar chart.
Yeah.
So Winnie the Pooh and mental illness. Never thought about that before. So anyway, hey, the more you know, folks. Just that's bonus right there. That's bonus. But anyway, folks, we have a special guest in the studio tonight. If you're wondering what's going on, I have with me my youngest, who's not so young anymore. I mean, he's young, and compared to me, compared to the rest of us, Vic, he's young.
Oh yeah.
But he's not like he was in this picture that I found. Okay. Vic, Katie, do you have this picture that I wanted to share? There we go.
Oh.
There we go. Now that picture is taken on the steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum.
The Rocky Place?
Yeah, the Rocky Place, and you can kind of see those steps, right there in the background.
Yeah,
but that was quite a few years ago. Gav, you remember going to that place? No memory. And we went to the Philadelphia Zoo at the at the same time. So yeah, so here we have in the studio that same young man. He's quite a bit older, and he's been through a lot of changes and grown up quite a bit. So, but so Gavin, for anybody that kind of showed up late, the reason you're here is because you're going to go on a mission trip, and it's a mission trip. It's an internship. Vic, you said it when you're like, who's really willing to give up their summer to go work like this? And it's not going to be any kind of a vacation. It's going to be hard work. I remember when Evangeline did it. It was challenge for her. Okay. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of reading. It was very intense. And this is like pro-life boot camp in a way. It's a lot of studying. Of course, you guys are going to be doing outreach. You're going to stuff that you've already done, right? Out at schools. So Gavin, I want to ask, why? Okay, so I know that your sister, did this, and you are inspired by her. But like, what kind of caught your attention with the realizing there's a need to do this? Like, can you just kind of share your personal thoughts on abortion and why you want to be involved?
Yeah, like you said about the need. Mark Harrington, who is the president of Created Equal, he was like, I think it was him, was talking about like there's people that work full time to kill babies, so we need people to work full time to defend them. And I'll be working full time over the summer, but for at least 2 months to do as much as I can to help.
So, no, and that's good. And you were kind of exposed to these pretty gruesome images, at a lot younger age. And people get mad at you guys for showing those images. Like, why are you showing those images? There's kids here or whatever. But what was it like? We understand that Evangeline did it. We understand who I am, but what clicked for you? I mean, was it what you just said? We need more people doing this full time, or, a sense of trying to bring justice for the babies, trying to save babies?
Yeah. I guess a mix of all those things. Obviously the way I was raised had a big impact on it, so I can't discount that. But I don't know, just being at the abortion clinics at a young age, and seeing all the old people that were there kind of like cheering me on, thanking me for being out there, kind of realized like a lot of the people that are out there aren't going to be there for very long, and kind of got to fill the queue with younger people.
We need the next generation to come up. Yeah, no doubt. So, okay, I want to step backwards for a minute. You went on a justice ride, and I know that impacted you in several different ways. One of them was just all the friends that you made, okay, because you were kind of a homebody at the time. And you went out there, you made all these friends, and you kind of came out of your shell. I was concerned about you going on that. I'm like, man, I know it's going to be good, but I don't know how he's going to adjust. And you did great. You did amazing. So what would you say to anybody? Like, there's parents, there's grandparents listening, who knows, pastors, churches. What would you tell them about the Justice Ride? Why it's so good to go on, for young people to go on to the Justice Ride?
I don't know. It'll really like change the direction that your life is going. And I mean, it's so cool just to be out there and be a part of that in any way. Like it's kind of scary, obviously out of my comfort zone at first, but I think the week that the first Justice Ride was still going on, I signed up for the next one because I loved it so much. And I don't know. Obviously, all the friends that I made is great bonus, but
Right. So I know that you had a lot of conversations over the last couple years, not only on the Justice rides, but when he came back from the Justice ride, he was wanting me to take him to Columbus as much as possible because they were doing outreach and he wanted to be there on the outreach, right? So, not only to do the outreach, but to also see his friends as well. Gav, can you kind of share like some of the conversations that you had, maybe one or two of them that stick out to you?
One that I remember from the previous Justice ride this spring, I was talking to this guy, and I don't think English was his first language, so there was kind of that barrier. But like, I just like kept telling him about like the fact that life begins at fertilization, and he just like kept like completely denying it. Like, I told him that he can like, I don't know, like believe whatever, but it's not true, and that science is like backs up the fact that life begins at fertilization, and he just didn't believe that for whatever reason. Like, I told him about the sources that they have, and he just didn't want to hear any of it. So.
And when guys go out and go to the abortion clinics, or you guys go to schools, college campuses and stuff, what are some of the things they say to you because you're a guy? They try to basically discredit you to even be there. I mean, what's that argument?
I mean, pretty flimsy argument, just saying that guys shouldn't have an opinion on abortion or tell women what to do with their bodies.
Right.
And what's your response to that?
If they're not gone by the time I can respond to it, because they usually run off, I'll just say like, why does me being a man have anything to do with like the value of the child in the mother's womb, or like my ability to speak up for it?
Well, just like you don't like serial killers, right? And you think what they're doing is wrong, you're allowed to have an opinion on that. And this is in a way is serial killing. So Vic, go ahead.
I just the hypocrisy. It's like we live in a culture now where only women can make comments about abortion, but then we have absolutely no idea anymore how to define a woman. So who's to say? So who's allowed to talk on this issue? But anyway, couple questions, Gavin. We got a lot of prayer warriors in our chat. And so if you could remind us again when you're leaving, and is there any specific things we can be praying for you? Anything in particular you're concerned about or that you want prayer for?
Yeah, I'm leaving this coming Sunday.
The 4th.
On the 4th. And the first day is on the 5th. I'll be moving in on the 4th for like 2 months, I said. Yeah. And I guess for prayer, I mean, I don't know what all the work's going to be like outside of the classroom. And because obviously I've been on the Justice rides and we do a little bit of training each time and lots of outreach. It's very outreach focused, but this is like half and half. And then obviously a lot of homework going with that.
Right.
So pray as the Spirit leads. And not only for him, but all the interns. These guys, I'm telling you what, I am so blown away. And if you want to be inspired, go to createdequal.org and watch their videos. They have a ton of videos. And Gav, it's a lot of girls, right? There's a lot of girls involved. There's guys involved too. They are masters at defending life. And you can learn from them, okay? It's a great place to learn. You don't have to go on on one of these trips to learn. I mean, it's great to have boots on the ground, but you can watch and see how they do it, and they're really good at it, okay? They teach you how to counter every argument, all right? And there's not one of their arguments can stand up to the truth, period. So that's why they won't listen. That's why they call names. That's why they try to cover up the truth, all of these things. So, but when you see these kids stand up in the midst of this, of this hostility, and you see the courage they have to go out into this environment and say, hey, you're not gonna do this without at least looking at the slaughtered children, the victims. Okay, we want them to have a voice, and they can't speak for themselves, so we're here to speak for them, folks. These guys have a lot of guts. They have a lot of courage, and I'm blown away by what they do. And not only their courage, but their self-control, because you can't, if you're hot-headed, you can't go into these situations, because we're not to take revenge on these people. We're not to harm them in any way. We might feel that way in our flesh, okay? And they're begging us to do that. They want us to do that so bad because that would discredit us, right? So it takes a very level, cool-headed person, to be able to do this. So they need all kinds of prayers, okay? So prayers are welcomed. Guys, if you want to support financially, 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 bucks is so helpful. So, and Gavin's pulling up a picture. Who is this picture here?
I don't know who it is. It's on Students for Life Instagram page.
So pro-lifers are getting attacked. So I'm going to put this picture up, and you can see this guy here has just been busted across the face.
Good.
So yeah, and it's kind of disappearing here, but it's kind of hard to make out. But pregnancy centers and pro-lifers are getting attacked. So, folks, you know what? Not everybody's called to do what Gavin is doing, but if we're not called to do it, then we need to support those who are, okay? And we need more people to stand up. We're seeing amazing things happen, okay? Of course, last year we saw Roe overturned. That's great politically, but really nothing has really changed as far as, we have seen. Now, let me say this. Lots of babies have been saved, okay? Because there were already laws in place in certain states, okay? But they are constantly working to find loopholes in a way around these state laws, okay? So we knew that the mission wasn't over when that was overturned, okay? It's really just getting started. So, Gavin, can you say anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, that was cool. I was actually with Created Equal at their day of action on the day that Roe fell, and that was pretty cool. Lots of people crying, tears of joy about that, and I was glad to be with them. But we knew that there was still work to be done, and I knew that I still wanted to do the internship next year, which is this year now. And even on the justice ride, I don't know if a lot of pro-lifers are thinking that it's over, but like last year we had way more people than we did this year, which was kind of sad. But
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, I'm guessing that's related to Roe, but
Yeah.
who knows?
And Katie put up a link in the chat of the picture if anybody wants to see that. So yeah, there we go. And you can see this gentleman here. It's an example. There's physical attacks. They hate us and they want to hurt us. But if they understood anything about persecution, that only helps us grow. Okay. That only strengthens us when we're persecuted like this. And it also works for the other side when the other side's persecuted. So that's why we shouldn't persecute them. We love them. We'll stand for the truth. We'll expose the evil, and we'll preach the gospel. Okay. So, but anyway, Vicky Joy, any other comments or questions tonight on Doomsday or anything that we're talking about?
Just everybody pray for Tom's wife who has to put up with Tom while Gavin's gone for 2 months.
Yeah. It's going to be rough a couple months for her.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for thinking of me there, Vic. But so anyway, guys, thank you so much for supporting Through the Black and everything that you do. We just appreciate it, and we appreciate you hanging out with us. Tomorrow night, Colleen and myself are going to have Dr. Gregory Reed. So make sure that you tune in and hang out with us. It's going to be a good conversation. We're going to talk about all things Greg Reed, and we're going to talk a little bit about his music and just what he's got going on. Of course, Greg's going to be one of the speakers at the Go Therefore conference. He's coming back to Ohio. Super cool. Get to see him twice in 1 year. But folks, we are, of course, tomorrow night, Colleen, Thursday night, Audiotopsy. Then we're taking a break for a couple weeks. We'll be back. Stay tuned to throughtheblack.com. And, keep an eye out here. We'll let you know when it's happening. Say some prayers for Gavin. If you got $5-10, throw him a bone, help him out. He's going out there on the front lines, and he needs your support. Guys, thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you. Tell him bye, Gav.
Yep. Bye.
Okay, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.